Now with longer term goals, it's also a great idea to have an action plan. But that's a little too much detail for this. It's under Goal Guidelines number 1, Chapter 4 in the book. Go check it out. We're moving on.
Check out his book. Sure. Like I have time for that.
Maybe you should make it a goal to look at it for a minute. After all, they sure don't teach us any of this in school.
The second goal guideline is short and sweet. State your goal in the positive. When you say, I will get an A on that test, you're focused on what you want. If you say, I will not fail that vocabulary test, the focus is on failing. Even if you're saying that's what you don't want, that's still where your focus is. So just flip your goal to make sure that it's talking about what you do want and not what you don't want.
Hey, I do that all the time when we have to play basketball in PE. I keep telling myself not to drop the ball whenever someone looks like they are going to throw it to me. Maybe I should focus on catching it instead. Then I might not drop it so much.
The third goal guideline. Make sure your goal is something that you can control. That's all. Just make sure that you're the one who's driving and not somebody else. I will get an A on this vocabulary test. You're in control. It's up to you. Nobody else has to do anything for you to get it. So just make sure that you can control what's happening. Make sure you're driving.
He could be onto something. When I tell myself that I am not going to let my friends bug me, all I notice is how much they bug me. That really bugs me.
The fourth goal guideline is make sure you can tell when you've reached your goal. This goes back to the specific thing. If I say, well, I want to get better at X, it's hard to know what better is. Put something specific on there so that you know when you've hit the mark. I will get an A on my vocabulary test is specific, and you'll know right away if you've achieved it or not. So that's all. Just make sure you can tell when you've hit the mark.
That seems simple enough.
He did say it wasn't complicated. So far, that is true, but if he keeps piling up these guidelines, I am not going to be able to keep them all straight.
The fifth goal guideline is a timeline. You've got your specific goal, I will do X, but you've also got a timeline. I will do X in X amount of time. What this does for you is that it gives you an extra gear. When you're coming down to the timeline and you see you've got so far to go, then you can push, 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 and you get so much more out of yourself just because you're gunning for the timeline.
I don't know about this one. I have enough stress going on as it is. I don't need to put extra pressure on myself by adding another deadline.
Exactly. What happens if I don't make the deadline? Wouldn't I just be setting myself up to fail?
Well, what if you don't make the timeline? Then what? Did you fail? No. You just make another timeline and go after it again. And you still get that extra gear. It just brings more of what you have inside and lets you put it into play. I will do X in X amount of time. The last goal guideline isn't for the small stuff. You wouldn't use this one on your I will get an A on my vocabulary test. This one is for the big goals. Once you've practiced with the little goals and see how this rolls, then you're going to want to go after the big fish. This is for those. Begin, even if you're not sure how to proceed.
Oh, great. He finally gets to the end of these things and finishes up with one that doesn't make any sense at all.
I think he likes to do that. You know how he can be.
Really? You see, a lot of people won't start anything until they have everything figured out. So they don't start a lot of stuff.
My mother is like that. She is always talking about starting some new thing. Then she goes out and buys all this stuff to learn about it. But she never gets past that part and actually does whatever it is she is supposed to be learning about. And she wonders why I don't stick with anything.
If my mother tells me to do what she says, and not what she does one more time, I am going to set a goal to lock her in the closet. I know I will be able to accomplish it under the timeline of 1 minute, no problem.
Other people, the only thing they have going for them in the beginning is the desire to achieve that goal. Then they'll work it out. This is exactly what I had to do with this website, these videos, everything. I hadn't clue one about how to do any of it. All I knew is that I was going to do it, period. And I had to figure out everything along the way. And that's the way it is for a lot of people who go after the big stuff. And they get there because they take the first step, even if they don't know how.
For a minute, I thought he was going to go into one of those boo-hoo-hoo stories about how hard life was before the internet or remote control, or whatever dinosaur stories they like to tell so much.
I know what you mean. Old people and the internet. But you have to admit that doing something like this would be really hard for an old person to do, if they had no idea what they were doing when they started out. He probably needed someone to tell him what a blog was. Too bad nobody told him they are so 2007, and that nobody reads them anymore. He probably complains about how stupid Twitter and Facebook are. You know old people. Whenever they say something is stupid or boring, it just means they don't understand it.
When it comes to big goals, your willingness to go after it is the most important factor in whether you're going to succeed or not. Martin Luther King had an excellent quote just on this. And he said, "Take the first step in faith." You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. So those are our 6 goal guidelines. Remember, the achievement attitude is all about taking committed action towards specific goals. And now you know how to set specific goals. So go set some specific goals and achieve them. Practice, practice, practice. See you on the next video.
Okay, so what goal are you going to set?
I'm going to watch the next video.
By when? Remember what he said about having a timeline.
Okay. Okay. By tomorrow night. What about you?
I am going to get an A on next Friday's vocabulary test.
Wait a minute. I thought you hated vocab.
I do. But I will like getting an A on it more than what I usually get.